Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Spider-Man, or Marvel Spider-Man, I keep messing that up as of late. Marvel Spider-Man, Spectacular Difficulty Video Walkthrough. This is back to school, and I will be no damaging it. This is one of the goofy missions in the game. It's a nice fun one, with a pretty decent sense of humour. It also has some interesting fights that are slightly unconventional, but I'm going to approach them in an unconventional manner, and I'm going to swing around throwing shit at people, because I found it to be very funny. But the first thing I think you have to do is you have to trigger this interaction with this teacher, who is pretending to be Mysterio, who is a villain I would have loved to have seen in this game, because I particularly quite like Mysterio. He sucks as a villain, but he reminds me of Necron from Final Fantasy IX, so that's why I like him. What a stupid reason to like a villain, right? But it's true. But if you come up here to the guy who looks a lot like Vulture, he's going to tell you that the dude dancing stylishly over there on the dance floor like a beast is the person we're looking for, and now we have to cruise over there and check him out. It's interesting what this game chooses to focus on the villains, because I feel like Vulture and Electro, I think he's called, are kind of underused. Scorpion and Rhino are a little bit underused, yet Lee gets a million encounters, and he's the dumbest enemy in the game. Like, he's the most dumb villain. Yin and Yang man, only there's no Yang. It's like so strange, right? And apparently he's in the comics, so he's not been invented for the game, but I just feel like he's the worst guy to focus on. And admittedly, some of the Spider-Man villains are kind of silly, aren't they? Man wearing Scorpion suit, man wearing Rhino suit, like really dumb. But I like those guys because I saw the comic when I was a kid, and I found it fun. Whereas I've never even heard of Mr. Negative until I played this game, and there's a really good reason for it, because it just looks like somebody pressed Control-I in Photoshop, and that's about as interesting as he is. Oh, another thing, guys, you can turn the lights off in this room and get a bit of an advantage, but I like fighting this room, so I came down guns blazing and kicked everyone's ass, which I definitely recommend. It's a really fun fight. I love that you can pull the stacks down, and you can chuck people into stuff and break things. I love the destructible environments. I'm hoping in the next game they ramp up on destructibles, because I love the fact you just break everything. But this is an interesting sequence too, and I find it really funny because they focused on fun here rather than just arbitrary mechanics. In any other game where you're following a conversation like that, where you have to move across windows, they'd be able to see you, you'd fail, and it'd be a fail state. But in Spider-Man, because they want to do fun, you just crawl across those bad boys and nobody even sees you, and it's just like crazy to me that that's how that works. You know, zero shit's given, and it works so well. So I was really appreciative of that. But here's another fight against a bunch of people with guns. This is one of those fights where the guns really don't make that much of a difference, because you begin the fight with a bunch of gun guys and they don't shoot you immediately. You know, if all the gunfights were like that one, I would look at it mechanically as a lot better than I do. But you haven't seen the fight I'm going to speak about at length, guys, because it's the hardest one in the game for terrible reasons. Like, there's only two difficult fights in this game, I think, when it comes to no damaging. No damaging this game is really simple, folks. You just have to be sharp and react. If you can do that, you'll be fine. It's got really good checkpoints. Everything about it is very player accessible. But there are two sections. The section with the helicopter firing infinite rockets at you while you have to break all the power cores, that section's very tricky. And then the section after it, which is the hardest part of the game, because it starts with a bunch of people with pistols shooting you immediately from 50 yards away. Like, it's... those two fights are just a different planet of awkwardness compared to everything else. And they're the only section that I would warn you of as being challenging, because everything else, once you kind of get the idea of it, is fine. And sure, those two encounters, if you're using all the crazy OP abilities, will probably be very manageable too, but I'm trying to play this game in a manner that challenges me, so relying on that stuff would kind of get away from the fundamentals of the game. And it's the reason why, when Ultimate Difficulty does come out, I'm going to do no upgrades, no damage, Ultimate Difficulty, and then we're going to really see just how well made the game is. Because one thing that I think players who've never done challenge runs fail to understand is that when you play a game at its basest presentation, it has to work. Fundamentally, it has to be well designed for it to be doable, possible, and then if it's fun on top of that, you have yourself an immaculately designed game. And for the most, Spider-Man really works. There is few areas where it stumbles, but it fundamentally succeeds, and that's great, because the only devs that really get this right are Japanese ones, and Insomniac are not Japanese.